All right, let's talk a little bit about gaining muscle and strength at the same time. It feels like a lot of times people don't understand that these are things that can be done concurrently. And the fact of the matter is they absolutely do not interfere with each other in any way. The only thing that people don't realize with this is that a lot of times bodybuilders are not always training specifically for max strength, because it doesn't always carry over to what they do, even though some of them do train for it year round and have won the Mr. Olympia like Ronnie Coleman. They also don't realize that a lot of times strength athletes and powerlifters are trying to maximize muscle too, because that is part of the strength gaining process, but they don't always emphasize the show muscles. Maybe they skip curls and stuff, and so people are like, well, they look kind of thick, but they don't look good, or because they haven't dieted down lean, they don't have biceps, things like that. So it creates a lot of confusion in terms of these things. Also, because you have a few statistic outliers who are stronger on a couple lifts than they look, it just makes everyone think that these are completely separate things. And again, the reality, they are not. They're absolutely not. They can be trained for concurrently. And particularly the strength end, because when you look at, say, Westside Barbell, right? Look at Louis Simmons. And he's like, look, we use the max effort method here. We lift for heavy singles, right? Although some of that got changed into 1 to 3s and things. Like, right, we lift heavy. It is maxes, and we do them every week. We do it on 2 exercises a week. We see where we're going with this? You look at how Louis Simmons at Westside trained all his athletes and lifters, broke all those world records. 100 world record holders came out of Westside Barbell in powerlifting. We lift maxes twice a week, okay? Twice a week. And then he's kind of like, then they do speed work and GPP, but then when you ask him, what does your breakdown look like for other stuff? He's like, well, we do 70% bodybuilding work. Or he would call it special exercises and accessory work, right? And he says basically bodybuilding work. And it would be 8s, 10s, 15s, 20s, all these high reps, even isolation movements. You start looking over there, you're like, they're training rear delts, they're training triceps, they're even sometimes doing calves. Okay? Why? Because at Westside, they understood the human body can only handle so much really heavy training, 1. Number 2, you only need so much heavy training. He's literally over here going, we do 2 lifts a week, and at certain phases, it would be 4. 4 heavy lifts a week. Okay? Let that sink in. That was the most. 2 or 4 heavy lifts a week. So it'd be 1 upper body and 1 lower body. Like 1 type of press, 1 type of, as he would put it, a squat deadlift or a good morning. That's all they did. He was like, our maxes are 5% of our training. Okay? That's all it takes to get strong. And again, we need to be clear. This was the philosophy of Louis Simmons, who coached 100 world record holders in powerlifting over the course of his career. He coached over 100 of them. World record between the different classes and divisions. 5% of your training. So how much heavy, truly heavy lifting do we really need? Not a whole heck of a lot. Not a whole heck of a lot. At least not according to Louis Simmons. Okay? Could you build to a heavy triple? Could you build to a heavy AMRAP on the few lifts you care about every week? Could you take them to a max? Could you max them out every week? See, the answer is yes. What do we call that? Power building. Right? We start talking about power building at really Westside Barbell. The only difference, they weren't concerned with aesthetics or how they looked. They were just trying to gain muscle where they needed it to get stronger. So they would come in, and wherever Louis would see the weakest links on a person, they would come in and pump the crap out of it with bodybuilding work to get it bigger. Okay, you see where we're going with this? Why? because it is well known and understood in the research. A bigger muscle has more strength potential. And if you have an individual muscle that is limiting your bench press or your squat, and you spend a bunch of time just doing tons of hypertrophy work and pump work and bodybuilding work, what happens? It gets bigger and the lift goes up. I mean, and he was really like, yeah, single joint exercises, isolation movements. If you have to, get in there and build that muscle up. Okay. So what happens if we just apply this across the board? Because if we know the size equals strength, why can't we just train like bodybuilders? We can. It works. We train like bodybuilders and then come in and do a limited amount of heavy work. It only needs to be 5 to 10% of your training, the actual heavy work. And it doesn't cost you anything. People are like, well, what if it beats in America? What if it, well, if you're doing it correctly, it shouldn't. Okay. Be clear on that. If you do it correctly, why would it interfere with your recovery? Is this a real concern? I don't think that it is. I don't think that's a valid concern. So you come in squat, bench, and deadlift heavy every week. Then you can come in and you can just get jacked. Spend all the rest of your efforts on getting jacked. Now, could you have a couple other lifts you care about so you go lower reps? Sure, like you really care about the incline bench. All right, you want to do some triples or fives on the incline, by all means. Okay? Treat them as assistance movements even for your other stuff. Isn't that what powerlifting always did? But then instead of accessories coming in and saying, oh, let's focus on my weak links, just get big. Get big everywhere. Train everything. Train every angle. So that you get jacked. You get jacked so that you look good. And aesthetics is largely just a matter of muscle balance and getting lean enough. It's mostly what it comes down to, right? So again, the point being, we can gain muscle and strength at the same time. And look at your context. How many today in the standards of powerlifting and bodybuilding today, how many elite world level powerlifters look like physique competitors? It's really common. They look like they're almost ready to step on a bodybuilding stage or men's physique stage. How many bodybuilders out there come in and occasionally max out and hit lifts that would put them on a world platform in powerlifting all the time? Right? These are not things that are difficult to combine. They're not difficult to combine at all. Just get in and do it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.